Hi there, this is Oh So Curious. We're a podcast run on every single Sunday, right now, at this time. Here you are, here we are. I'm Andrew Frankel. With me is my good friend Daniyal. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you.
Yes.
We got a lot packed into the show today. What's happening? Take us through it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let's do this thing. So today's show, we're gonna start things off as we do. Quick hits, weekly movie news. A lot happening in the world of movies today and TV. 3,000 Years of Longing review. Idris Elba, George Miller directed movie. Tilda Swinton. Rings of Power review. Episodes 1 and 2 dropped. We're gonna talk about those. We're gonna look ahead to Andor. Comes out next month, but we want to get ahead of the train here and look at how the show is gonna be. And then we're gonna finish things off by previewing D23, which is the big Disney Expo that takes place this upcoming weekend. So it's still a week away, but hopes and dreams. What do you want to see? Fantastic Four, maybe announcements, new Star Wars content, Tron. Apparently, their website for D23, it's talking about Tron,
I just want to be real clear here.
So, yeah.
Did you title that Hopes and Dreams, or is that D23's title?
No,
You want to know what
my editorial decision.
You want to know what my hopes and dreams are. You want to express your hopes and dreams. You want to hear what these people watching the show, what their hopes and dreams for D23 are.
Essentially, that's the intent.
Essentially. Yes. All right. Well, if you're watching, that's your responsibility to tell us. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment your hopes and your dreams in the comments, because we'll probably be responding to those later.
Yes.
Yeah. So be our friend. Join our movie fan community. We are putting out content on all the stuff: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, anywhere you get a podcast. That's pretty much us. How about we just slow down a little bit? What's going on? How are you?
I'm doing well. It's been a really busy week. I got a lot of balls in the air. I wanted to go watch 3,000 Years of Longing and didn't get a chance to do that, but I did watch She-Hulk last night. So yeah, I've got a few things to say about that. But
yeah, how is She-Hulk? I jumped off that train a while back.
Oh my God, I'm glad that you asked. All right. She-Hulk.
Thanks. Tell me how you really feel.
Yeah. Yes. Look at that. Is that obvious enough for you?
What is this?
Yeah, She-Hulk, I gotta be honest with you. Episode 1, right? It was upside. It was. I almost said upside down. It wasn't upside down, but She-Hulk it had a lot of upside in episode 1.
Yeah.
I think in hindsight, it was the high point of the series. Now I know we're only 3 episodes in, but the cameos are reigning supreme, as you just saw, and the reaction that I had to that is,
who was that?
Why? That was Megan Thee Stallion.
Okay.
Who I'm pretty sure I've never listened.
I've never seen her. I've seen the name.
Right. It's one of those things where maybe we're not the target audience, perhaps. I don't know.
I suppose not.
But it's even beyond going well beyond all of that. Like if you just look if you looked at that thumbnail graphic.
Yeah, no,
that
was
from a post-credit sequence where they're just booty shaking for like a minute, and I'm like, well, not a minute, I'm exaggerating, but like that's the whole point of that scene.
I'm glad it wasn't part of the plot.
It was in a not that scene specifically, but Megan Thee Stallion is like part of the plot. Like she's part of the B story. Well, okay, here's my big rant about this episode. Basically,
please.
Coming off of this episode, I'm thinking, what the hell is wrong with Marvel here? Where's the quality control? Where is the hand of Kevin Feige that like kept everything on track for all those years where we were getting good quality content, they were making good decisions, and if something was not working out well, they were changing track and making it better. Whereas now it feels like there's no quality control. This whole show, like, again, I'll put this back up on the screen just so that you can marvel at this sequence from the post-credit scene, because
jeez,
it blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind that they were willing to let this kind of thing just like Marvel has had a fetish for cameos in Phase 4.
You're
That's
kidding.
established. It's But now you look at the CGI, even in the still shot, looks bad. Like literally watching the show, I felt like at times I was watching a cutscene from a PlayStation 4 video game.
Yeah,
Like
it looks.
the fabric CGI was bad. Like She-Hulk CGI has continued to look terrible when
The
she's
hair is
in a
really
live
like
action
matty
environment.
and just like,
Yeah.
yeah.
It, and I'm starting to realize maybe in hindsight, episode 1 looked better because there were a lot of scenes where we had the Hulk and She-Hulk, and the whole shot was CGI. So because the whole shot was CGI, we were like you were
The
able to get
compositing
away
was
with
easier. Your brain could process it all on the same level.
exactly like it was less for us to compare to that was truly real life, right?
Yeah.
So it wasn't as much of it wasn't a bit big of an ask. But now it's not even an uncanny valley issue. I think we're far away from the uncanny valley. Like
Yeah.
you're in the terrible CGI valley right now. It's
Yeah.
just it's
We're a long
and
way away from the
there's no
Polar
redeeming
Express.
qualities. Yeah.
But so what about the plot and like the characters? Like, is that also crumbling? And is the writing any better? Is the dialogue any better? Because I was not impressed with the first episode.
No, it's way too, like there's a lot of like on the nose stuff. Like just look at the shot here. This is her breaking the fourth wall. The one example of her breaking the fourth wall.
I feel like
And
I'm
it's
in trouble.
terrible. I'm starting to wonder if she was miscast in this role. Like this is
Interesting.
you look at what's going on here. Like this is a scene where there's a little bit of a fourth wall break as the scene goes on, and she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, connecting A story and B story, great." And then like one where she's in a car, she has like this mini monologue of, "I know there's a lot of cameos in this show, and if this is great, but I just
She
remember
addresses the cameos.
it does, it absolutely does,
Oh,
and it's like Ryan. I think I don't know if this is a problem with the screen direction. I don't know if it's a problem with bad acting,
that's just a
or I
bad
don't know if it's
move.
a problem with bad writing, or a combination of everything, where the
Sounds like
fourth
it.
wall breaks feel forced,
Yeah.
they feel tacky,
Yeah.
it just feels like the jokes are not landing, and then I mentioned this before we started the show, that in this show they have this like montage sequence where they go into the social media sphere and they talk, and they're this like little like mixed in voices of all social media, and like they have like all these graphics of different social media posts popping up on screen where they're talking about, oh, now where there's all kinds of female superheroes, why does a Hulk have to be female, and all that, like the whole woke ideology stuff, and they just drop it in for 30 seconds and then don't address it throughout the rest of the episode. And I'm just like, why do you have to step into the mud? Just
That's
take the high ground.
nobody is
Not needed.
nobody is
It's
above getting into the mud. It's
it,
like that's yeah. Everybody wants to stir the shit. It's so annoying. I'm glad you said
I'm
it. It's pointless. It doesn't add to the plot. It doesn't enhance the character. It doesn't make me
right.
respect the She-Hulk as her own thing. Like I would just love it if this could be a character who has a sense of humor about herself, who is really strong. There's so much inherently funny about that. Naturally, you don't have to force anything. You don't have to do the fourth wall breaks. You could just the idea of a woman who doesn't know her own strength, who's just tears things apart by accident. Like it's all been done before, but it's just like this could be such a fun show.
I
And
mean, not to the worst part about it is it is terribly written. There's a lot of telling not showing happening. There's a lot of clunky storytelling. Like the editing is bad. That there's tonal issues. That they don't know which direction they're going in. Like one of the people I was watching with, they just walked away after the episode. They're like, they're 3 episodes in. There's nothing going on. Like they haven't established a central conflict. From episode 1 to episode 3, it feels like it's obligatory that there's at least one scene where Jen Walters says out loud, I just want to go back to being a normal, inconspicuous lawyer again. And the whole reluctant hero thing, we've been down this road before.
yeah,
But usually you say that and then you
refuse
build on it.
It's the 12. It's the 12.
Yeah.
Or the hero's journey. The 12 steps of the hero's adventure. It's like
Yeah.
there's the refusal to the call to adventure, and then there's the acceptance of the call to adventure. You
Right.
go, And like that's a Dan
And for
Harmon
three
does this thing
episodes, we've
about
been
the
stuck in that same step.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's that the story circle of like this is how it's supposed to progress, and it's like when you divide things into this mini-series thing, you can spend 4 or 5 episodes on step 3 and never make it all the way back. And I think that might be a play to keep it going on for multiple seasons. But it doesn't sound like many people are going to stick with this that long. Get to the
It's getting
12th
worse.
step. Yeah.
It's 9 episodes, 3 episodes in. Like there was the one, and again, this felt tacked on too because they were like, there's no action scene in this. So they randomly had this like squad of goons come in who are based on the comic set of characters anyway, but they're really toned down apparently, and a lot of people are not happy how they got treated visually. So I'm like, even they couldn't get that right. Whatever. I'm not like, I don't care. I didn't know they were a comic inspired set of characters, but the point being, these 4 guys show up in an alley, attack her, try to like fight her off, and I think their goal was eventually we find out to maybe extract her blood, but she beats them up, throws one of them in the air. He should have died, landed on the back of his head, still alive somehow. They get into the van, they get away, and she's just like picking up her stuff, and that's how the episode ends. Before we get to the credits, which we talked about already in the post-credit sequence, but that felt tacked on, but that was the first inkling of any sort of conflict that's leading to something long-term, because it feels like there's somebody targeting her now.
Just as a side note,
after her, but
as a side note, I'm wondering like, where do these villains come from? How do they find out that there are superheroes? And it's like,
well, apparently in the world of the MCU, there's a superhero on every corner. There's a glutton of like that's one of the central points the show is making, which is like, I don't like, don't do that. Don't point out like it's kind of like
saying we're actually superfluous. We're what's the word?
Yes.
There's too many of us.
There's a great analogy that my brother mentioned to me yesterday, and he said this: it's like Marvel at this point with this show especially, and in Phase 4 overall, what they seem to be doing is saying, like walking around with a stain on their shirt and saying, "Look, I've got a stain on my shirt. Isn't that hilarious? I'll wash it. Like, yeah, look at me, I'm dirty.
Yeah.
Like, it's like stop pointing to the stain on your shirt. Like, you like because it's it's you're not being clever. And B, it's lazy. And like, go get a new shirt.
You messed up. You messed up. Go home. Change your shirt.
Yeah. This is like, I'm gonna say it outright. This is the nadir of the MCU. This is the worst the MCU has ever been. It's lazy. It's clunkily written. The acting is bad in some spots. The CGI is absolutely terrible. Like I said, it looks like PlayStation 4, if not PlayStation 3 graphics sometimes looking at She-Hulk. It's terrible. You could tell it's hand animated. There's a lot of easing going on. I don't know if they did have
to be fair, you know what's going on. You do this stuff professionally. But even to me, I'm just looking at it. I'm like, I've seen better. Yeah. Well, hold on a second. If you're watching this and you somehow feel differently, let us know. If you agree, share, like, subscribe, do the whole thing. Because as the people that the content is made for, that would be you, that would be me. Like, we have a responsibility to be like, nah, I'm not going to eat that. So let's send a message. Like, we will tolerate mediocrity no more. No more. Not on this show. Well, let's keep going. I think we had somebody comment this week.
Yes.
So why don't we take a look at this, just so you know, while you get that geared up. If you comment on something and it's a particularly poignant comment, or it's maybe it takes aim at one of us directly, we'll respond. We're interested in hearing what you say, and we're not afraid of a fight. So bring it on. What do you got? What's the comment of the week this week? Comment of the week: Isaac Salivary Marin. Beautifully shrunk into a 3-minute long video, a whole philosophy of what an independent and genius entertainer Norm was. Almost a year, we will never forget Norm Macdonald. That is a wonderful compliment. And yeah, I don't cry when celebrities die. I actually cried when Norm Macdonald died. I had no idea, like anybody, that he was sick. And the man was a class act who stuck to his guns. who was always willing to say what was on his mind, or hint at it in a real knowing way. If you thought it was beautifully shrunk and captured his genius, just know that it's because I'm a huge admirer of the man, whose comedy kept me going through the darkest times of the pandemic and some of the lowest points in my life. As I've said it before, he said, it's one thing to make people laugh. It's another thing entirely to make people smile. I try to take that with me wherever I go. I'm glad you enjoyed the tribute. That's the nicest comment of the week I think we've ever gotten. So thank you.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I could have gone with some other comments because some people
we got some mean ones too.
Yeah, we got some mean ones this week, but I was like, you know what? This one is very heartfelt, and yeah, it's been like a year, and I'm not somebody who followed Norm Macdonald his career, on a regular basis, but like going back and like watching a lot of his stuff, I mean, he is one of those. He's had a very offbeat sense of humor, and it was refreshing, and it was also, again, like a lot of comedians rely on, poking people or like pressing people's buttons to draw the humor out, and he had like this very like different style that was just felt wholesome in a way that you don't see from a lot of comedians in the contemporary world of comedy.
There's also like the entire discussion of truth in comedy. There's a book called Truth in Comedy, and he never shrunk away from the truth. There was always truth, even if it was pointing out absurdities about really trivial stuff.
Yeah. And some of his stuff, like, he did it in ways where like you're laughing because of the initial effect, but then afterward it hit you the point he was trying to make. And it just like only added on to the value of what he was trying to say. So there's very few comedians who can like provide that kind of like in-depth commentary and again, not just telling,
not explicitly
something to you. Exactly.
He was never preachy. He was never preachy.
Yeah.
And then I guess the last thing I'll say about him, because I could talk about him for hours, 10 years he was suffering, and didn't let anybody know because he prioritized putting on a good show and making people laugh. I mean, it's the total opposite of anybody who's ever posted a selfie in the hospital who's been like, something might be wrong. And it's like, oh, you're getting your tonsils out. Like, he didn't ever, ask for sympathy. It was incredible.
Yeah. I mean, just humblest to the end. And I can really appreciate that in a world where we live in, where everybody's looking for attention, right? Like, and it's rare to see somebody who's not, especially somebody whose life, like life's work is all about standing in front of a crowd and basically keeping their attention. It's hard to people, everybody, it's human nature to kind of get addicted to that feeling, but to be able to be humble about that, honestly, great person, great career.
Thank you for your comment. That's really great. And make sure that if you do comment, word it carefully, because we do look through these things. In the meantime, let's keep the show going. Let's take a look at everything that went down this week. Let's see the quick hits. Take it away.
All right, time for some quick hits. Here's what went down this week in the world of movies, TV, and all that jazz that we cover. Okay, so first up, House of the Dragon co-runner Miguel Sapochnik is leaving the hit series after just one season. Emmy Award-winning Game of Thrones veteran Alan Taylor will take over in his stead for season 2. I mean, this is kind of shocking, interesting, I don't know the exact reasoning, but hey, we're gonna have somebody who knows the franchise quite well coming back to take over season 2. Next up, The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power is off to a flying start on Amazon Prime Video, at least with the critics, that is. The show boasts an 84% rating on Rotten Tomatoes right now with the critics, but the audience score is like 39%, much lower. So have you been watching the show? Tell us which scores you agree with. Alright, so some animation news now. DC's Harley Quinn has been renewed for season 4 at HBO Max. Series veteran Sarah Peters will be taking over as the showrunner for the hit show's new season. So, again, another one of those, showrunner switches happening, but it looks like this person knows the show quite well. Now, next up, we're going to talk about DC fandom. So late in the week, news emerged that Warner Bros. Discovery will not be holding a DC fandom event this year, and instead, they will be engaging with their fans at numerous, this is quote unquote, numerous Comic Cons around the world. I mean, were you excited for fandom? Are you bummed out it's not going to be happening? Tell us in the comments. And lastly, Top Gun Maverick, this movie, man, it just keeps breaking records. I mean, it's the year's biggest film. It's not letting up. And this week, Paramount Pictures announced that Tom Cruise-led film, it's broken another record, man. It's broken the U.S. sales record for week 1 in digital sales. And the movie is still playing in theaters. I mean, are you kidding me? It's on IMAX at my local theater. It's playing in other premium formats around the country and around the world still. It is still, like, in theaters. And it's on digital. You can buy it at home. I mean, did you buy it? Because I did. Are you feeling the need for speed? Because I still am. I'm not tired of this movie yet. If you are, then I don't know. I can watch this movie over and over again. Anyway, well, that's it. That was the quick hits. All right. Well, before I leave you, another reminder: join us every Sunday for another episode of Oh So Curious. We are live every Sunday. We come at you with movies, TV, streaming, music, and existential philosophies of life. So please do come and join us and be a part of our movie fan community. Okay, so this is this new movie. It's got a really long title, 3,000 Years of Longing. At points in time, I've called it 1,000 Years of Longing or 5,000 Years. Apparently, it's 3,000 Years of Longing. As the graphic said there,
Sad and lonely?
sad and lonely. Now, here's the thing. I have not seen this movie, so this is that graphic is more a reflection of maybe what you thought about the movie because you did go see it. You even talked about it on Instagram a little bit earlier this week. So I'm gonna put up a spoiler warning here, maybe a language warning in case we get into anything explicit. But Andrew, what did you think about the movie?
Bottom line, I didn't like it, but not because I didn't try. The storytelling was pretty lackluster. I mean, we've said this already a couple times today. It was all tell with additional show, and the things that they did show was not really. I mean, they were pretty. There were a lot of pretty graphics, and there was some really beautiful language in it. However, it's so much narration. It's so much, this is what happened, then this is what happened, then this is what happened, then this is what happened. And the visuals aren't adding much. And like I said before, it may as well have been a podcast at that rate, because the visuals, while striking, they don't really add much to the story. I will say there was an inventive and creative use of CGI in a number of places. But ultimately, this is something that would have been better as some kind of anthology series, where it's broken up into chapters of the different love affairs of this genie's life, and the metaphor here is really like, a romantic relationship between Tilda Swinton and Idris Elba, which comes out of nowhere because she seems to have no interest in romance at all. And then one scene goes, well, actually, I would really like to be intimate with you. And it's like, oh, why? You seemed totally reluctant just a minute ago. Idris Elba has a bad accent in it. It would have been a lot better if he just spoke with his normal speaking voice. But, and then, go ahead.
I was just gonna.
Because
Okay.
I could rant forever.
Yeah, I was gonna pose this one question. So the key thing that I learned about this movie before, you know, this week was this is a film that sort of takes the genie concept and kind of tries to do something unique with it, which the gist of what I knew about this movie was this Jin character comes to, Tilda Swinton's. So Idris Elba's Jin comes to Tilda Swinton's character, says, "Hey, I've got 3 wishes for you. Set me free at the end, with the last wish." But then she decides to do something different. I thought the implication was she falls in love with him, but a lot of what you were saying seems to be it seems to be leaning towards like she's almost extorting him, or like what? Explain to me like
Well,
what's going on
it's
in the
like
relationship with these two characters.
for the first two-thirds of the movie, it's I don't want to make any wishes because genies are tricksters. It's I don't trust you, I don't trust you. It's this really the whole thing sort of plays out as a narrative, as a meta narrative of I'm a woman and I don't trust you. You're a man and you're a trickster and why should I fall for? I don't want you. I don't want you. And yet, all of a sudden, she's so attracted to him that she decides that she would like to have him for herself forever. Her first wish: be in love with me. And the
Wait,
concept.
this is giving me wait, the way you just described it is giving me Glenn Close, Michael Douglas, Fatal Attraction vibes. Is
Interesting.
that a
It wasn't that creepy, but it was like there's sort of a toxic femininity here of I would like to have you and contain you in my little lamp. I want to keep, and that's the metaphor is I have this all-powerful being here whenever I need him, and he's going to be my little secret. He'll be there when I come home, and I'm just going to contain him. And he gets sick, and he turns to stone, and he becomes clear like, he really can't stay here. And then, he comes back periodically, and I guess is set free. But she doesn't really, grow. She's like, I was lonely, now I'm lonely, and again, I guess maybe she does grow. Maybe she gives him the freedom in the end to just sort of live his own life and come and go as he pleases, being that they're different people, different beings. But it was a long way around the bush to get there.
Okay, well, I was gonna very quickly pivot to the Rotten Tomato score because
Sure.
it usually is a reflection of, the general reception of the audiences. So the critics have been giving it relatively favorable reviews. The audiences too are about the same. The numbers are pretty much correlated overall. And if you look at the consensus, they say the story isn't as impressive as the visuals, but
Yeah,
it's hard not to admire the ambition of the movie, which to me feels like an underhanded compliment almost. Like, would
it
you,
is.
yeah, like what do you think about that reception? I mean, this isn't the biggest
Well,
movie on the block by
first of
any
all,
means.
first
Like,
of all,
yeah.
I went to see this in theaters, and they had it showing in the smallest theater, and I was one of 4 people in the theater. So
Ouch.
73% of 4 people, well, I think we have an indication of why those scores match. I don't think a lot of people went to go see this. And the type of people that it would have attracted are the type of people that would be enchanted by a story about, this. I, admittedly, not the target demographic for it, but I was observing this as objectively as I could to say, how did they use the elements of the sound, of the dialogue, of the on-screen, visuals, and some of those things were redundant. Some of them were pointless. Some of them were downright abrasive and like trying to, make a real point. And I don't respond well to that generally, but it was. I agree. Some of the visuals breathtaking, ambitious for sure. The storytelling didn't match up.
Okay. And then from a directorial standpoint, this is George Miller, Mad Max. He's known for visual spectacle, obviously, but it looks like
Mm-hmm.
he fell short on the story side here. He does have that movie Furiosa in the works. Do you think this is a movie that is part of his catalog or portfolio of work will be something that will be remembered as something unique and different, or this is just going to be a blip on what is arguably a much more iconic portfolio of work all around? Like his
Yeah,
resume looks a
this
lot better
this is
without this
this
on
is
there, would you say?
nothing like Mad Max, and I was skeptical about Mad Max, and then I saw it and I was like, yeah, I'm into this. I mean that was spellbinding. This was a little lackluster, and just it just kind of droned. It sort of felt like reading the book that it's based on, which also has a title that's way too long.
Yeah, that's to me is never a good thing when somebody says watching this movie was like reading the book, because you might
Yep.
think that's a compliment, but most of the time that means they basically did nothing to optimize the story for the screen, because a
Exactly.
book naturally it's a different medium. It's not meant to be a visual thing. So
Yeah.
when you're adapting it, you always want to like give, adapt it to be as best as it can be portrayed on the screen, not as best as it could be read on the pages of a book. So,
Exactly.
but
And so it
yeah,
could have been shorter for that matter if it had
right.
optimized all of the elements.
So the last question I'm going to ask you is this something that you recommend? Like, for example, just I'll use myself as an example, right? Like I've known about this movie for a little while. I was excited to go see it this week because again, the concept intrigued me enough. The cast, they've got two really good actors in this. George Miller's a great director. So
Hmm.
I'm still somewhat interested. I'm, like maybe just out of morbid curiosity, if not anything else. But based on your experience, would you recommend somebody go watch this A in theaters, or B, do you think somebody should wait to see this in at home when it comes out on, say, Amazon Prime or something, or
Yeah.
C, just skip it entirely?
Well, like if you're curious and you want to see the spectacles, yeah, go ahead. Um, do you need to see it in theaters? No. Um, and if you're really in the mood for something that kind of has some supernatural elements and serves as a really good visual, and thought-provoking metaphor on romance and relationships, rewatch Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, with that in mind, yeah, if you guys have watched the movie, let us know what you think. You can follow us on social. Andrew did a fantastic out of theater reaction for this when right out of theater a couple of days ago. You can check it out on Instagram. We are at Oh So Curious on Instagram. Of course, if you liked the video, hit the like button below, hit the subscribe button. We review new movies every week. This happened to be the new one that we wanted to touch upon this week. Next week, I'm sure there's something else that's coming out. We'll be touching upon Black Adam, Black Panther, Avatar, all of those movies. Who knows? We may do a second review of Top Gun Maverick because clearly it's still making plenty of money at the box office. So,
See how it compares watching it on Netflix. Or
yes,
where is it streaming now?
it's
Is
it's
it on
it's
everything?
nowhere on a streaming service yet. You can still you can buy it on digital,
Hmm.
rent it on digital, or you can go and watch it in theaters. Still in theaters. It's still in IMAX at my local theater. You can
Wow.
there's that's I think that's about a testament to what else is out there, or the lack of what else is out. There's no other good movies out there taking up IMAX screen space, so they're like, put Top Gun Maverick back up there, and it's
Yeah.
making money. So
Wow.
yeah, it's insane. It's insane. It's like 3 months in, and it's on digital. People can watch it at home, and it's breaking records on digital sales. Yet it's in theaters, and people are going to watch it there. So
That's absolutely nuts.
yeah.
Well, we don't just review movies, we also have a lot of TV content. And Catriona and Mags both took a look at the first couple episodes of Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Let's take a listen and see what they had to say about the first two episodes of the most expensive show ever.
$1 billion. Yeah.
Jeez, it's too much.
All right, so Rings of Power, thank you for not being another Hobbit trilogy like I kind of thought it might have been. Good job. Yeah, exceeded my expectations. I'm not 100% sure if that's because I gave myself extremely low expectations because I didn't want to be disappointed. I'm pleasantly surprised. We haven't seen any rings yet, despite the name Rings of Power. We'll see.
Galadriel starts with one sentence. Nothing is evil in the beginning. And I must say, the series isn't either. It's actually pretty decent. Wow. Amazon, wow. You actually can deliver. The first two episodes of The Rings of Power, yeah, within first 5-10 minutes, you're completely immersed in the second age of the Middle Earth.
The world actually felt so much bigger than The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. Obviously, the original Lord of the Rings, I mean, they was made in like the early 2000s, so it makes sense that they didn't like have the technology to make it seem as epic as they do now.
The CGI is on point, you know, no wonder they spent so much money on those special effects, as well as costumes and sets. It's very believable, very breathtaking. You know, some of the highlights was to see Moira. I know I'm jumping into episode 2 already, but you know, seeing Khazad-dûm in its full glory and power, as well as seeing the journey of the elves to the west, to Valinor, and you know, my 10-year-old self who was dying to see things like that in Lord of the Rings was just completely satisfied and completely sold on some of those little highlights that I actually didn't know I wanted to see, but it was breathtaking.
There's a lot of stuff that's very familiar and you're like, oh yeah, this feels like Lord of the Rings, but I mean, it would make sense because it's in the world of the Lord of the Rings, and it still manages to just like be its own thing, which is good so far. There's 2 Hobbit children who are basically like the girl versions of Frodo and Sam. We're introduced to all these other characters. There's like an elf version of Aragorn. We're introduced to young Elrond, who I don't really like who they cast. He feels like a theater kid cast. Like if this was like a theatrical, like a play version of The Lord of the Rings, it just feels like that's who they cast, because they didn't even try to make him look like Elrond. Elrond has like long, dark, stringy, straight hair, and then this Elrond has like pretty boy, like Prince Charming from Shrek hair, which is a little weird. Galadriel's well cast. I think everybody did a great job acting wise.
Durin and Elrond, I totally bought it. The chemistry of those two, the fact that they have been friends, you know, it was a great scene, and I am looking forward to seeing more of that dynamic coming out.
We find Elrond is not really such a great friend because he missed Durin's like entire life. But for some reason, Elrond just like gets away with it by like leaning into Durin and being like, congratulations on your life, and then Durin's like, alright, I'm still mad, but come on in and meet my wife. And he just kind of gets away with it. It's a little weird.
You know, we have the love story of an elf and a human. We have, you know, Nori, who's, you know, lasting adventure and, you know, seeing what else is out there. And yeah, I must say she might be my second most favorite character because, I can relate. I am actually doing this review from Vietnam right now, so yeah, like, you won't see me with leaves in the air, but I understand this whole crave of, you know, what else is out there. So, speaking of Nori, was that Gandalf? Can someone please save me from my misery for another week? And please tell me that was Gandalf, because if that's how Gandalf arrived to Earth, Middle Earth, what an entrance, right?
I have a feeling it's actually not Gandalf. I just feel like it's actually Sauron. I don't know why. It just seems like it would be. Could be wrong though. Maybe it's not even any of those people. Maybe it's like a totally new character. So
my most favorite character of all time in the whole Lord of the Rings was always been Galadriel. So when the cast of The Rings of Power was announced and Moira Clark was cast to play Galadriel, I didn't feel nervous at all because I knew that she could deliver a great performance. But with someone like Galadriel, you do want to... you cannot just replicate Cate Blanchett's performance, but what she managed to do is to not only bring Cate Blanchett's sort of gracefulness and delicacy in some moments, but also make her own sort of character and sort of see how it roots into what Galadriel later becomes, the Lady of Lorien and stuff.
I'm really glad that the orcs, from what I've seen, are actual people in costume. It's not CGI, like the Hobbit movies. yeah, it just really does a good job of, especially in the beginning, and then with all the Hobbit stuff, it just captures this magic, and reminds me a lot of 80s and 90s fairy tale movies. Like there's something that reminds me of Willow. There's something that reminds me of, I don't know, other things like kind of like the Goonies a little bit even, but like not like an Americanized version. You know, it's still very charming.
Sorry, let's not forget about the score by One Grade. Barrett McCreary, I loved it. Thank you so much for making me, immerse within the world by bringing in Howard Shore's delicacies. Am I going to watch episode 3? 100%. Okay, see you next time, folks.
Okay, so there's this new show coming out. It's the latest Star Wars series, Andor. It's described as a prequel to Rogue One, which in and of itself was like a prequel to the original trilogy. So prequel of a prequel. Diego Luna is the Cassius Andor, the titular character here. Now, this show stands out a little bit from the crowd when it comes to Disney Plus Star Wars series because this show is going to have 12 episodes. It's already shot season 1 and 2, and in season 1 they're doing things in like 3-episode blocks where each 3 episodes set of 3 episodes, so there's 12 episodes, 4 sets of 3 episodes, are going to chronicle 1 year in the life of Cassius Andor leading up to season 2 is going to be, I think, all 12 episodes are going to be like the year before Rogue One. Then this season is going to be 4 years or 5 years before Rogue One. But it's the rebellion is what the show's about. Yeah. So Max, let me ask you the question. Let me ask you the question. How good is this thing going to be? Because we have seen like the latest thing, the last thing that we saw from Star Wars on Disney Plus was Boba Fett. And
Obi-Wan.
What? Oh, never mind. Whatever. Sorry, Obi-Wan. I'm blanking. Obi-Wan. You know why I'm blanking?
We even reviewed it
because
on the
it left
show.
that little of an impression on me. That's why. Not that Boba Fett did any better. Although I think Obi-Wan had better moments. Boba Fett was just a total mess. Obi-Wan, I think, could have been a movie, as it should have been, as it originally was supposed to be. But this was always looked at as a TV show. They built a lot of sets for this. They spent a lot of money on this. There's what is it? It's one of the Skarsgårds is in it. Is the Papa Skarsgård is in this one? Is it Stellan?
Yes,
Yeah.
Stellan's in there.
The trailers have looked fantastic. So again, let me ask you this, Max. Is this gonna be good?
I mean, you keep asking me very difficult questions. Is it going to be good? I mean, we will all see. But let me unpack this. From what I've read so far, from what I've seen, having watched the trailer, and most importantly, having seen Rogue One, the more any Star Wars artifact is detached from the royal family of Skywalkers, the better the story is. It's like this weird formula, you might say, that Star Wars tend to have.
I see what you did there.
It speaks it speaks about the games. I mean, it's the same thing for the games, same thing for the books. Star Wars universe is so broad. There's so many different things happening, so many different races, so many different planets, so many different stories and people, most importantly. And I read an interview with the show's creator. What was his name? Oh my goodness. Tony Gilroy. Sorry, Tony Gilroy.
Okay.
My mind is blank completely. Tony Gilroy, he said that he wanted to focus on like stories of the people within Star Wars universe, more than just like, incredible heroes that we get to see, but people that you see every day, the shopkeepers, the I don't know, shop clerks, the same thing. I don't know.
The blacksmiths,
Common folks.
the
Exactly,
saber forgers.
blacksmiths.
I don't know, whatever.
Like normal people living and seeing how they cope with the empire and with the restrictions and with difficult times and the good times. So we had like, insights of those places here and there across the films that we all know, but nothing in detail. And what Rogue One gave us was that insight into just a bunch of brave people that saved the day, and it worked. It worked perfectly, and I think that's what we can expect from the show. That's what the show creators tells us is going to be exactly set in. And yeah, I am genuinely very excited about the show, and the less Skywalkers, the better. And this is me saying that all this after having watched Obi-Wan, and I'm sure you guys remember how I ripped it apart. I completely ripped Obi-Wan Kenobi apart. I have high hopes, high expectations, and I think unlike Obi-Wan, this is going to deliver what we all been sort of wanting from the Disney and Star Wars universe. What
Yeah,
do you
I mean,
think,
look,
Dan? Like, do you
what
share
I
my observations, or are you gonna give it a
so
shot? Because you stopped watching Obi-Wan at some point, didn't you?
no, actually, I watched it all the way through. I did. I don't remember if I
I
watched
did.
it like
Okay.
weekly or if I like fell behind and then caught up, but I was
I think that's
watching.
what
I
you
mean,
did.
I had mixed feelings as you did, and I think in the end, I mean, there's this like fan cut that's been going around for that where the guy just took all the episodes, cut out all the fat, and turned it into a movie, and it
Oh
apparently
wow.
is so much better.
Finally. Wow.
So I mean, you can Google it. I forget exactly the name of the person who did this, but a lot of fans, anybody who's
Okay.
seen this says, "Oh, it's way better than the series. It should have always been a movie." And ironically, Obi-Wan was always supposed to be a movie, and then when Solo flopped, they just shelved it. Then they brought it back as a show, and ultimately, I think the story ended up
Yeah.
being mostly the same, but
But
clearly
it would
they
have
stretched it out.
worked because you had the same cast. But anyway, let's not talk
Yeah.
about Obi-Wan. This one,
So
Andor. What do you think
Andor.
about Cassian Andor?
Yeah, I mean, look, my general opinion on the show is this. Having seen the marketing material for this, we talked about Lord of the Rings before. We've talked about Game of Thrones. Those are the other two shows that are on there. She-Hulk is on there too. Let's just leave that as it is. But Andor is, I think, connected to what I believe may be the best. I literally mean the best Star Wars movie ever made, which is Rogue One. And this is coming from somebody who's not. I'm not somebody who's like a stickler for like the original series of movies. The original trilogy
Yeah.
is the best. I look at those movies and I say they've they've
Yeah.
not aged well in a lot of ways. And I think the stories in those movies were much simpler and not quite up to par with like the golden age of television or like what our standard for filmmaking is today. Like
Yeah.
in my opinion, Rogue
You
One,
either
yeah.
brought up with Star Wars or not. I think we'd covered this. Like that's what
And I
defines
wasn't. I
that
mean,
whether you're a fan or not. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I discovered the Star Wars franchise proper. Like, it's not like I hadn't heard of it before. I actually own like the novelization of The Phantom Menace from back when that movie came out. And I was much younger, but and it's not
Wow.
like I really read that book all all that much. But the point is, it's not like I wasn't aware of the franchise, but I really truly
Mm.
got into the franchise like a little over a decade ago, like in the late noughties. Is that what you would call it? Late 2000s, whatever. Um, but as somebody who then watched back 6 movies worth of lore, I was looking at the originals and
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, you know what, they're good, but this isn't exactly like, it's revolutionary for visual effects, I get all that, but it wasn't like
For the
the
time, yeah, it was
right for the time,
amazing.
exactly.
Hmm.
But like
Yeah,
then
yeah.
Force Awakens came out and I'm like, oh my god, this thing is so amazing. And then Rogue One came
Mm.
out not too long after that and I was like, this thing is even better. Like, or I mean, I guess here's what I would say. The Rogue One is not as watchable. Like, you couldn't put it on repeat and be able to sit through as many viewings of Rogue One as you could The Force
No,
Awakens. I think Force Awakens is generally a more enjoyable like action adventure movie. It's meant to be that. Rogue One is
but
darker, a little more drama
if
filled.
you relate back, to what I said, do you see the pattern that the less we focus or like milk the Skywalker saga, the
You're right.
more
You're right.
room for
Because yeah, because then like the second and the third, like episode 8 and 9 of the Star Wars trilogies, like those got closer and closer to like the Skywalkers, and they progressively got worse and worse because the writers just, they didn't have a plan, and then B, they just kind of
yeah,
like twisted themselves into a pretzel, trying to like both
exactly.
honor the fans' expectations but also chart new ground. And I'm sure there's a good way of doing that where you can kind of balance those two things, but clearly they weren't able to do it. Whereas Rogue
Yeah.
One, I think, did all of that. it basically took the opening crawl of the original Star Wars film and turned it into, like I said, one of the best, if not the best, Star Wars movies like ever made.
The
And this
best.
show is now like a prequel to that. And I mean, Cassius Andor was a great character in the movie, so I mean that's obviously the big draw here. What impresses me even more
Yeah.
than that is I hinted at this earlier. This show was shot like in London at the Disney studios there, and they built like huge sets. You have seen some of the cast, like, you know, we talked about Skarsgård, like there's a lot of other big time actors.
Yeah.
Forget like one of the female actors who's in it. She was in that movie Ambulance that came out recently. She's in the show. Obviously, you know, Diego Luna,
Oh,
the titular
right.
character. And
Mm.
the cast is, I mean, what about that guy? The person who was in Rogue One, he's coming back. He's got like
The robot.
no, not the robot. He's got like the curly
Oh
hair.
no.
He was in Black
Yeah,
Panther.
I remember. I know who you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah,
I don't know why I'm
I
blanking
can't
on his
remember
name.
his name, but he's like, I mean, that's another thing. Like, we know these people, but we're not sick of them. We're not sick of
No,
those characters,
no.
and it's doing what Star Wars tend to do within the games and books and, like, I don't know, even board games. They take a character out of a broad universe who isn't particularly special, and they just tell him the story, tell the story of that person, which just turns out to be great without having, like, I know. Do you know what I'm not gonna definitely find out? Cassian is not a great descendant of Skywalker. He's not,
Yes.
the
I
grandchild
sure
of
hope that's not the
Palpatine.
case.
He's not going to be connected to the OGs that we're all frankly are sick of. We are actually going to be introduced with a lot of great special effects and really nicely, like, creatively created worlds, but nothing familiar. So there's going to be this whole unfamiliar within familiar, but as you said, done tastefully, fully balanced, and yeah, just like honoring fans, but also leaving enough room for the new audience to stick around and
Yeah.
see.
I mean, this is what I'm looking forward to the
Yeah.
most, right? Like you said, like the un I was about to use a Star Trek reference of the undiscovered country, but like literally what they're doing here is exactly what Rogue One did. They're going in and they're like taking a part of the Star Wars story that nobody has ever told before or has even hinted to at. So the writers have a lot more creative freedom here. You're gonna see like the
Yeah.
dirty, like the work that like the rebellion has to do, because you know no rebellion is clean. Like it's
Yeah.
you're rebelling against the Empire,
They're
which
gonna go darker.
yeah,
That's another
and
commentary. They go darker with Star Wars,
yeah,
and that's unheard of. Like, Star Wars always try to keep it PG, but
but
we're
Rogue
not
One
gonna
did it.
get Game of Thrones.
I
Exactly.
don't know if it's gonna be
I
Game of
mean, it's not gonna be.
Thrones level,
That's what I
but
mean. That's
but
that's some of the concerns fans have, but I don't think they would do
I,
that. But
it's
I'm
Disney. It's
excited to
Disney
see the
Plus. I mean,
exactly. But it's gonna be darker. It's gonna be grittier. It's gonna be less polished.
yeah,
Kind of a feel to
exactly. And
it.
I think Star Wars thrives in that like environment when it looks a lot less like the prequels and a lot like the original, which is that dirty,
Yeah.
grimy, lived-in world look. But I do think overall this might become the very first true. We have had a lot of Disney Plus series so now, like The Mandalorian and Obi-Wan and Boba Fett, and even like the Marvel stuff like She-Hulk and Miss
Hmm.
Marvel and Moon Knight and all those. But this, I think, will become truly the first prestige TV series on Disney Plus that will be able to compete with the likes of a For All Mankind or Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, like on that level of not just visuals, because we know they can put up the visuals, but acting and storytelling
And the
and
story.
narrative, like
Exactly.
all. I think
Because they
this
have
will check all the
space.
boxes.
They're
Yeah.
they're they're not cornered. They're not restricted within the limits of, hey, it needs to fit this timeline, this story, these events. They yeah, they and also because it's happening only 5 years before Rogue One. It has room for the crossovers, for fans to throw in
Okay. I'm glad you mentioned that
So
though.
do you remember when Darth Maul appeared in the Han Solo movie and everyone kind of freaked out? They loved it, but at the same time, I was thinking, why? Like,
Right, it felt forced.
it felt very forced, cheap, unorganic. Exactly. But then in the Rogue One, when we had, you know, the Vader doing the thing, that felt great. And I feel like the series is actually leaving the door open to a lot of those comebacks to take place without it feeling so forced, so unorganic. So yeah,
I see.
just
And I hope that's
unneeded, not
exactly
needed.
how it plays. But that
Mm,
also leads me to my biggest concern about this show is, I mean, the question becomes, how will this connect to other Star Wars shows and movies? We know sort of how it connects to the movies because we know how it connects to Rogue One, and like it sits within the
mm,
general like episodic structure of Star Wars. Like we know where this is placed within the lore of the franchise. But do you think
yeah.
this will have direct connections to like the other ongoing or recently on air shows from Star Wars, like The Mandalorian or Ahsoka that's gonna come out next year, or The Mandalorian? Because I feel like as good as those connections could be, much like how we spent one entire episode of The Mandalorian in a Boba Fett show, I just don't want anything like that to happen in this one, right? I
So
want this
I
show to
don't.
stay focused
I
on Andor.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
can't, because everything else is happening way after the events of Return of the Jedi.
Oh,
You know, Mandalorians,
you're
not
right.
Return of, it's happens. So
That's after
Mandalorians
the
in
Empire
between Empire,
falls. This is before.
Empire
You're
Strikes
right.
Back.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah, that's why that's the beauty of it. They cannot even go there. If they go, that's insane. I mean, who we can expect? We can expect Darth Vader to make an appearance, maybe Palpatine, maybe
What about like
maybe
Boba Fett?
they
Well, no, no,
no,
you're right. No, no,
Boba's
no.
no,
Well,
but
maybe a
I'm
version of
afraid
Boba Fett.
Leia. They can relate.
Yeah.
We can have more Leia stuff, and then we can have more, maybe Obi-Wan, which is completely unnecessary. But you know, the Vanity Fair that photo shoot they had,
Yeah, they were like
like
the whole, this is
when
the
they're all
Star Wars universe on
together.
TV now. Yeah.
I really hope that's not like kind of a little cue of like,
Well,
hey,
so
we might have
far the signs
Obi-Wan
have
in
not been
Andor.
good because we've seen two shows
Yeah.
come out since that whole story came out, and yeah, I don't
Mm,
think they've done very. I mean, they're obviously trying to connect it. They're trying to use some of the MCU magic that here in Star Wars, but like you said, I'm really encouraged by the fact that we're not going to get direct connections to a lot of those other shows, and
yeah.
hopefully, whatever cameos we do get, they feel natural and they're not forced. And again,
Yeah.
there's enough in the show itself with the characters and the story that they need to tell at the core of the show that I think they don't really need to lean on any cameos or special
Yeah.
appearances. They could just,
Because especially
tell a
if
great
you
story.
Yeah, because especially if you look at the writing nowadays in Hollywood, it hasn't lived up to the expectations or up to the part. It just hasn't been
Yeah.
great. This actually has a chance, again, having such a great intellectual property. Disney should just relax and just tell a good story. That's all. They don't need to over polish it in order to please everyone or try to please everyone. They should just relax, focus on the characters, tell an interesting story, which, you know, we haven't seen in a very long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
and let us enjoy it without, you know, forcing us to
Yeah.
stick to the
Well,
season.
I'll say
Yeah.
this. I'm really looking forward to the show because, like I said, this has the potential to
Likewise.
be the very first prestige show on Disney Plus, very first prestige Star Wars thing that we have seen on television. And it has the best chance of like sitting like shoulder to shoulder with the Game of Thrones and the Rings of Power kind of
Mm.
shows. Plus, it's connected to, I think, the best, if not one of the best Star Wars movies ever made.
I support that.
So,
I know you're a bit
yeah.
like not sure about saying this, but I completely support that. Rogue One is the best Star Wars film ever made. Like, it is.
All right.
So
Well,
good job, them.
and in that
More of
case, I hope
these.
Andor is the best Star Wars show they've ever made. But
Oh,
guys, if
yeah.
you're watching and if you are just as excited as we are, or if you're not, I don't know, maybe you're not looking forward to this at all.
If you
Maybe you
can't
can't wait for
tell.
Ahsoka, and you're just like, I'll skip this one. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Follow us on social media. We're on all the the usual suspect social media channels like Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok and YouTube. You're watching us
You
probably
can
on
find
YouTube.
us anywhere.
Yeah. Also curious.com. We got a website. It's a nasty little thing. Thanks for watching. Please do like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Like, we put up new videos every week. Obviously, we are live every Sunday at 1 p.m. Let us know your thoughts below about Andor. We are all excited about the show. We hope you are too. And if you're not, we'd still love to
Very.
hear from you. Like, tell us why you're not excited. And
Tell
if
us
you are,
why.
then
Yeah.
we'll look forward to it. We're gonna be reviewing it probably, and we look forward to having you there with us.
So there's something wrong with like my audio recorder, so I'm just gonna do my phone. This is just how it is. But I got a package. Check this out. I didn't think I was gonna be that guy, but here we are. We're gonna do a little unpackaging video. This is cool. I didn't think I would be at this level already. I'm excited. This is cool. All right, let's do it. All right, so we got a funny guy. Funny guy. It doesn't even sound like there's anything in here. I don't know. We'll try it. This is ridiculous. I swear, if there's like another box, I don't want to get. Let's just do it. Okay. Okay, so I might not have to open it. Something just flew out. It's like a little kernel. I'll probably go back to see if there's anything else in there, but let's just check it out for right now. Let's see. Of course, I have to unfold it. Okay. This is from Chris and Charlotte. Nice alliteration. It says, "Dear Rolan Underground, I'm about to graduate college. What am I supposed to do now?" Well, Chris from Charlotte, no one does. We're all winging it and just trying to be confident. But it's a season. I'm seeing a lot of friends actually graduate this year. Can't relate because I graduated last year. Yeah. Anywho, so I thought I'd make a... Anyway, so here's some tips for after you graduate. To Chris. By the way, don't listen to people that tell you like, "Oh, these are the best years of your life," because that will make you very depressed. Don't do that. They're the best years if you make them the best years. So don't stress too much about it. Let's just get into it. Here's some advice. If you have the money, then you can always go back, get different bachelors. I don't really recommend this. What I do recommend is just creating a totally fake identity. Enroll as a freshman, so you get the 4 years. Now, you're not going to get the same friends, and it'd probably be smart not to go to the same university, but there's another 4 years of college, baby. And you know what? Maybe even go with like the same major. You'll be ahead a little bit. This is me thinking. Honestly, you probably even take on new loans because of the new identity. I think this is the perfect plan, but you let me know what you think. But if you know and if someone accepted that you can't go back and you need to move on, I have some other options, I guess. And speaking of moving on, move out of your college town, because if it's not like a major city, like if it's not a busy city, I guarantee you it's probably not a good place to stay, just because there's not a lot of opportunities for you to grow. Like when I graduated, I loved my town. I tried to stay in there as much as I could, but I couldn't do anything. There was nothing there for me, and I had to move out. But again, Mountaineers, baby. What you really need to do is apply, get exhausted and become disinfluenced, and apply some more. Just take any job that you can in the field you're looking for. Like, honestly, try to go as lowly as you can, because now you have your foot in the door. Now you have a little bit of experience. Now you have one up against literally everybody else around. Just network once you're in there. Try to get a little bit higher and higher as more you go. It's what you gotta do. Now let's get into the little things, some things that you can do. Maybe you're still in town, do some bar trivia, gain some knowledge. Maybe you run into possibly a new mentor, some old person that will feed you the wisdom to complete your destiny. Or you chance it and you mess up and you have to talk to this drunkard for an hour and a half while they just invade your personal space. It's terrible. Something that is really good is updating your resume, especially if you're doing freelance jobs. The more you update it, the better it looks. My resume looks terrible because I don't know how to do a resume. Don't ask me for advice on that because I don't know how to do it because I'm an idiot. And it always looks clunky and cheap for some reason. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I think you know what it is? I'm not using a template. Maybe use a template. Don't use the exact template, spice it up a little bit, use some different colors, some different fonts. But I'm just like, I do like from blank. I think that's what it is. I think I need to use more templates. I've seen this done before. Lose all sanity and become a vigilante. It's a true story. Buddy of mine did this. I'm not going to elaborate, actually. Let's just continue. Traveling. Europeans do it all the time. They're like, oh, take a gap year. Because they have all that spare money from insurance or whatever. I don't really know what their deal is, but I don't even know if that's good advice because honestly, Europeans, they can travel all throughout Europe in 6 hours, and I'm lucky enough to get out of my state within that time, okay? There's a lot, and things are expensive right now. Gas is ridiculous. But if you're not traveling, you're staying home, honestly, I get a cool pet. And I'm not talking like your basic, like dog, cat, maybe a goldfish, I don't know. But get something weird, get something kooky. I'm talking like a ferret or an iguana, something that strikes out. Because when you hear that, you're like, whoa, I'm gonna remember this guy. That stands out to you, And it's my friend Sam. He's got a prairie dog, and he gives it up in like every conversation. Let me tell you something. He gets jobs. Now I don't have a friend named Sam that has a prairie dog, but let me tell you something. It got your attention, didn't it? That's what I'm talking. I'm poking my eye. Ow. That's what I'm talking about, just make a little name for yourself. Or, and this is always a classic. I mean, you've heard this tons of times. Get stuck in a time loop of nostalgia and, just kind of slowly die there. This is somewhat of a nod to my new movie called The Problem with Remembering. Worked on it, had a lot of fun, did it in 3 days. Did not come out how I wanted it, just gonna be totally honest. Expect a remastered version soon. But yeah, nostalgia, we've talked about it many a times. I have. What's there to say about it? Nothing. Move on with your life, okay? Hopefully, hopefully this video has helped you, or it didn't. I don't really care, necessarily. On a real note, there is no set determined plan after you graduate or in life or whatever. You might make yourself some goals and you might achieve them and you might not. And it's not that big of a deal. Nobody is really expecting anything of you after like a year of college. You do whatever you want, chillax, plan. Just take a break after doing what? 18 years of school, something along those lines. Just find what you think is best for you. Because I'm just a guy in a beanie, with a green screen behind him. This is Rolan Underground, where we talk about what's happening in the world above while in my grandparents' basement. I'm your host. In the wind.
This is our time to wish and hope and dream about everything that Disney can bring us in the next year or two to come. The D23 Expo is sort of, I don't know, I guess you would say, maybe it's the Comic-Con of pure Disney stuff. Of course, Disney expands into Marvel and Lucasfilm now, and Fox News and everything else, that isn't purely Netflix or Hulu.
Well,
but
I don't think they own
yeah.
Fox News, but they do own like all the entertainment properties that they bought from Fox. But yeah,
Okay, well, Fox.
20th Century Studios, as it's known.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in any case, I don't think they're going to be dropping anything about like Hannity has a new, I have an exciting new adventure. But we won't get into that. It's just This is where we're going to see all of the exciting hype-building announcements that will have us on the edge of our seat for the next year about everything that will be released in theaters, on Disney Plus, Disney Channel, Disney, Marvel. What do you think we even... Are there rumors so far that we can sort of expect to be delivered?
Okay, so I think the general conjecture around the internet, as it would be, is that they're going to announce things that people are expecting to see, but they're also going to then announce things that nobody, like, it's going to be left field announcements, like stuff that nobody thinks is in the works, and out of the blue, like for example, they might all of a sudden say like, oh, Nicolas Cage, please walk onto the stage. We are announcing the next National Treasure movie. And like, Jerry Bruckheimer, please come on stage and talk about it. Like, like that's the kind of left field stuff that they can potentially announce. More likely what people are expecting that they will talk about is things like Andor is going to be coming out in September 21st. So that's literally like a week or so after D23. So I'm anticipating that they will probably give us some promotional material that we haven't seen yet for Andor. They're also probably going to dive into maybe a first look teaser trailer or behind the scenes footage of Indiana Jones 5. So, Harrison Ford coming back with that.
Is Shia LaBeouf coming back too?
No, I don't. No, I don't. As far as I'm aware, he's not involved with this movie. But
Drat.
So this weekend, as we're doing the show, John Williams is doing his annual Hollywood Bowl concert, right? So they run Friday, Saturday, Sundays, Labor Day weekend in the U.S. And this weekend at the Hollywood Bowl, during his performance, he unveiled Phoebe Waller-Bridge's character's theme in Indiana Jones 5 as part of the concert. So that was a piece of news that came out this weekend. So if you were one of the lucky ones who went to one of those 3 nights, so I think today, this Sunday evening, they're going to do another, the last of those 3 days of performances. So I don't know if that means that they play the same set of tracks every day, but if they happen to perform it again, you can go get a little preview of what that music is going to sound like in Indiana Jones 5. So
that's cool. She's actually, I like her. I like her a lot. She'd be an interesting addition.
John Williams has said that will be like his last movie that he scores before he like really steps away from music composition, like for at least
That's
movies.
a good one to go out on.
Yeah. I don't he never like was made it concrete like that he's retiring for sure. It just made it seem like he's stepping away, stepping back. Maybe he's going to do some other things. I mean, the dude is like 90 years old. He's like
transition to directing stunts.
Probably not that, but I mean, I think he's earned his time off at this point. If that means retirement or if that means he just wants to take a break, he's done enough for Hollywood in general. I think he's given his creative touch to some of the most iconic movie franchises of all time, from Harry Potter to Indiana Jones to Star Wars to what else? I mean, name it. Like, what was it? Home Alone, Christmas Times. I mean, classic stuff. There's even things like Willow. Like, there's projects that he was a part of that people forget that he was a part of. Like, Superman's iconic theme is probably the most iconic superhero theme for any superhero property, Marvel or DC. So,
I think Star Wars might be bigger at this point.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean like superhero, like
for a superhero. Yeah.
Yes, but like no, I mean it's up there. They're all up there. Like it's subjective, really. It's people's perspective. But anyway, getting back to D23, maybe there'll be like, this is a Disney legend. They unveil John Williams as a Disney legend. I think they usually announce those ahead of time. Like a few years ago, Robert Downey Jr. was given that honor. Like, he's a Disney legend now. I think that was when he had just wrapped up his run as Iron Man after the I'm Iron Man moment in Endgame. But looking ahead, they're also probably, this is something a lot of people are expecting. They're expecting to get a big Fantastic Four announcement. Like, they're going to probably announce, and it's some insiders are actually at this point saying that they're going to announce the cast of Fantastic Four. This past couple of weeks, we have been getting news that Matt Shakman, he dropped out of Star Trek 4 at Paramount, and there were reports before that happened suggesting that he was in the running to be the director for Fantastic Four. Now, you don't drop out of a major studio picture at a different studio if you don't have another big job lined up. So at this point, basically confirmed without actually having been made official that Matt Shackman will be directing Fantastic Four. So we know the director. It's not official yet, but we basically know he's directing. What we don't know is who's going to be starring in the movie. One of the
But
people
people
that
have some ideas, don't they?
they do. I mean, John Krasinski, I already put it up. John Krasinski, he
Yeah.
was fantastic, Mr. Fantastic in, was it Earth
Multiverse of
838?
Madness.
In Multiverse of
Yeah.
Madness.
Yeah.
But Penn Badgley is like the actor. I think he was in New Girl. He's somebody
and
who.
You.
What?
He was in You, I believe.
Yes.
Gossip Girl and
Gossip
You.
Girl, not New Girl. Gossip Girl. That you're right. I messed.
And he's
messed up
he's a
those
good
shows.
he's a great actor.
Yeah.
He does strike me as a little young because I think one of the charming aspects of characters like Tony Stark and like Reed Richards, it's that they're like middle-aged dudes. You know, it's not everybody has to be Spider-Man where it's like I'm a little kid but I can take on the world. It's like no, I've been around. I'm a smart dude. I'm an adult. That's kind of a nice. I could buy that more from John Krasinski, I think.
True, but like I think they're looking at this fantastic. I mean, from Marvel's perspective, I think they're looking at setting this Fantastic Four franchise up long term. So it's kind of like when they went and cast Tom Holland for Spider-Man. They weren't thinking about
Right.
like we need to do a trilogy of movies. I think they were thinking like we need to do a trilogy of movies. So like
Yeah.
9 films. So
Well, that's the
starting
other
young
thing is-
probably helps with that.
Well, younger, but you know, even in the comics, Spider-Man confers with the Fantastic Four a lot, and
Yeah.
I don't think that Tom Holland is coming back for Spider-Man.
There's nothing official yet, and honestly, I'm starting to get a little concerned. I mean, hey, again, this might be one of those things that, although it's a Sony property, like they have the rights to. I mean, it's a Marvel thing, but Sony has the rights to it, so it's unlikely that we'll get a ton of Spider-Man announcement. The only thing I can see is the animated series that they have coming on Disney Plus soon, which is meant to be a prequel to the trilogy of films they just did in the MCU for Spider-Man. But
unless the time has come for Miles Morales outside of the Spider-Verse.
Well,
you
even
know.
that would be a Sony thing, because all that's still within the sphere of influence of what they control the rights to. So I mean, yeah, actually, get the point I was trying to make before was I'm starting to get concerned. We haven't heard a lot about what's going on with that Tom Holland contract, what's going on with Disney and Sony's, because I think that last movie that they just did was all that they had agreed to. Like officially, that's it. So to do anything more from here in terms of collaborating with Sony on the Spider-Man franchise, they would have to strike a new deal. And they, at the time of the release of the movie, as you would expect them to say, because of course, why would they say otherwise? They were saying that yeah, we're already working on the next thing, but right now we know what Phase 5 is going to have. Like basically everything in Phase 5 was laid out at Comic-Con. We know like the big hitters in Phase 6. There's a lot of gaps, but none of those things were connected to Spider-Man directly. And
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, are they just is Spider-Man just gonna like kind of disappear into the background of the MCU? Yeah, that's a concern of mine, potentially. But by the way, some out of left field stuff that might happen. I put this on the graphic. They might actually announce the new Tron project. It's been sort of rumored for a long time that they might want to do a sequel to the movie they did with Olivia Wilde and what was it? Jeff Bridges came back in that movie for a cameo. It connected to the original film, so it was like in continuity. They might announce a new one.
The biggest question I would have if they did more Tron is would that mean that Daft Punk would get back together to do this to do the score?
Oh, I would love to see that. I
Me
would
too.
love to. I mean, the question, of course, is would Daft Punk love to see that? I don't know.
Yeah,
That's a
and they
big
blew
question.
themselves up in that video, so I don't know.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's hard to come back from that. One of the other things that they'll probably give us a more of a preview of is Willow. They're turning it into a TV series now. You know, the Lucasfilm project from way back in the day. It was I think originally a movie, and now they're making it a TV show. They already put out a trailer a long time, like a while ago, and I'm feeling that we might get more of an insight into what that's going to look like. It's going to come out on Disney Plus this fall or winter months. And I think in November it's dropping. So those are some, again, like some of those things that people are expecting to see. But again, we might be surprised by, like, they might give us a title for the Taika Waititi Star Wars movie. They might tell us like the release dates for the next Star Wars movie that comes out, because right now we know there's a lot in the works, but there's no Star Wars movie that is officially titled or scheduled to come out. That Rogue Squadron movie that what's her name? The director of Wonder Woman. God, I'm blanking on her name. Was it Kathy? I'm gonna look this up. But basically, they announced it a couple of years ago, and she was meant to direct the Patty Jenkins. That's her name. Patty Jenkins. What the hell? Patty Jenkins is the name of the director who was announced for Rogue Squadron, and we had that whole cutscene of her like going up onto an X-wing on an actual runway in California and in the Mojave Desert. And that movie has sort of gotten sidetracked for a while because of like scheduling conflicts and things of that nature. And she's still working on Wonder Woman 3, but they took it off the schedule.
They're still going
so
with
I'm
Wonder Woman,
wondering if that's back on for the next couple of years, because I would love to see that movie. Like the idea of a X-wing squadron a focused movie in Star Wars, because I'm a big like aviation fan. Like I loved and ate up Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah, and
this
you
could
know
be
what,
like
that
the
would
Star Wars of Top Gun Mavericks. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean that would change things up a lot, because we've talked about how Star Wars starts to feel redundant because they're telling the same story with different characters. If you reorient it to be about the pilots, don't do a Top Gun, don't just remake Top Gun, but you could establish an entirely different culture that's separate from Jedi, and just have these guys who exist in the same world. This is what I've been saying. You could even have them be. I know this is maybe controversial, but we were talking about like Star Wars comedy in the same universe. You could have the crass like guys just being like, yeah, we got to go out, and like it would be so much fun. They go to the cantina and they're like, it's an opportunity to have fun, and I hope they take it.
Yeah, I'm looking. So for me personally, I think the biggest things I'm looking forward to is I am, like most other people, I want to see what that Fantastic Four team is going to look like. I personally liked like the Miles Teller, Kate Mara, like Michael B. Jordan iteration of the Fantastic Four. I think they were given a terrible script, and the movie had a lot of issues behind the scenes in production. I think the director got fired halfway through or whatever. But if I feel like that movie was cast well. Unfortunately,
those are all fantastic actors. They're all fantastic
it was
actors.
executed terribly.
I like the original. I know that's not a popular opinion. I actually preferred Chris Evans as the Human Torch. I thought he sold that character really well. And it's I think the key here is not to make it another Guardians of the Galaxy or another Avengers movie. Like, give them a unique dynamic, because it is a husband and a wife and a brother and a friend.
They're known as the Marvel's first family, so I think there could be more of that family dynamic there. Oh God.
Oh,
sorry.
Oh,
sorry.
Wow.
I did this to us.
You meant to
Well, I never
do
told
that.
you never
Here
threaten
we
a
go.
man's family.
On that note, he might make a good thing.
I'm sorry, what?
You got it. Vin Diesel might make a good thing. And do they have anybody rumored for
You're
that?
right.
Nobody.
You're right, yeah.
Nobody
I was
cares.
like, you're talking about what?
Everybody cares about Reed Richards. Nobody's saying anything about The Thing. Who
That's
would
the
you
thing,
have
right?
as
Like
the
people like
Thing?
to fan
That is
cast
the
like
thing.
it's a Fantastic Four. People like to
Yeah.
fan cast 3 out of those 4 characters seemingly,
Yeah.
because they're like, oh, anybody can play the Thing, and I'm like,
Because he's going to be all CG anyway.
it's fair, right? Like, yeah, that is true. I mean, I actually like the first 2 Fantastic Four movies. They didn't
Yeah.
really go CGI heavy, because
No.
it was relatable. I mean, I can buy it. Like, and I think with the VFX technology today that's better, you can always supplement it with CGI. It's sort of like, I
Yeah.
think the Iron Man suit got worse at the longer, like the more movies he was in, because they went heavier and heavier into CGI. And not only that, I mean, I think the first Iron Man movie had a lot of the full suit in complete CGI. They
Yeah.
definitely did. But the realism of the suit kind of like went down like the toilet, because by the time we got to Endgame, it was this nano suit that was just popping on and off like magic, and you couldn't really believe it as
Yeah.
much. But like, I think the Thing, you need to like make it at least semi-real. Like just get your like
it's
prop
always
department
better.
out there, your costume production designers.
This is what we were saying about the Rings of Power,
Something
is that
practical.
there's a hybrid of practical and CG, and I think that's where you hit the sweet spot. You adjust things, but you have to do some pre-production in order to make it compelling and realistic. Otherwise, you end up looking like.
Which I mean, all of these they do it. Like right now, Disney's got teams of people working on like prevising this movie, working on costume designs and everything well ahead of even attaching a director to it officially. All of that stuff, because again, Marvel like sort of is like a factory. Like that's how Marvel Studios works. They're a machine that runs where the director. It's basically one big TV show, and Marvel and Kevin Feige is the executive producer and the showrunner of this show, and then they bring a director in to direct an episode, which to us looks like a movie or a mini series on Disney Plus. So they've already probably got a lot of this like locked and ready to go. They just need to make it official, and I think that's going to be a big for the fans. It's going to be a big announcement, and I'm looking forward to seeing it, because then again, people will start judging and either saying you made the wrong choices, or they're gonna be like, this was perfect, you picked the right guy. I mean, that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah.
People are
Well,
gonna criticize it.
that's the other thing, is that like the fans have gotten really, really entitled, and they think that they can, and I guess they willed it into existence with John Krasinski for that one movie, but
Which look, Kevin, that's Kevin Feige saying, "Hey man, I'll throw you guys a bone," but that doesn't mean now you give him an inch, you take me for a mile. Like don't do that. Like
we don't democratically elect our Avengers, or any TV character for that matter. I think it's fine to react and say that was a bad call, but give them let the studios do their job. Let them do what they're doing, because generally
I mean, there's
some
casting
that goes into
directors like Sarah Haley Finn has been doing it from day one, and they've clearly hit on more than they've missed on. They're good at their jobs, and so if you have some doubts when they make the announcement, I would suggest keep those doubts in mind, but then give the movie or a TV show or whatever medium they come out with these characters in, give it a fair shot. Judge it on its own merits. Don't go in with preconceived notions of what you want this to be. Like that's where I think a lot of fans fall into the trap. They like to they have like a certain picture in their mind of what they want to see from a certain franchise or a certain character, and then they go into it saying, if it's not that, I'm going to hate it, because how dare it be anything different than what I want it to be. And I think that's the wrong attitude, because then you can never give anything a fair viewing. So
this is going way off topic. I watched The Last Airbender for the first time. It's not that bad.
I have not seen the movie in its entirety ever, but from what I have seen, it's like based on the if you were to go by the animated show, it's very different, and I think that's again like different. It flopped because
it's compiling too many things. I will say that it's too, but like I don't know what more you could possibly want. I'm gonna be really interested to see like what if these other adaptations come out, and for some reason they're better, they're regarded as better. I'm gonna wonder what it is, and maybe it's just a matter of pacing, but I did not have a problem with it.
Yeah, I think one of the issues that I had with it was not necessarily maybe even the story. I mean, like Roland mentioned a while ago, they were calling the main character Ong instead of Aang, which, by the way, that's probably just the that's probably in my opinion, Ong is probably the better, more
they call him Sokka, but it's it's not like they didn't watch the show. Those were decisions they made. Maybe that's how they justify. Yes, this is an artistic interpretation of it, but they did a pretty solid job replicating the scenes from the show.
If anything, I think what the movie's cardinal sins were the VFX execution was bad, and some of the cinematography was not very inspired. Like I think you could have put a better cinematographer in charge of that film, and you could have had a director who could have. I mean, look, M. Night is known for working with movies that have VFX heavy, but for some reason in that movie, some of those like fire wind effects were like in the animated show, like it's so artistic, whereas in the movie it felt lackluster. And I think that was where, like, for example, you compare that to the what was that movie that came out? The Mortal Kombat movie that came out last year, right? You compare the visual effects of that, and you have all these fire elements and wind and ice happening. Avatar has a lot of those things, and I think Mortal Kombat did a fantastic job of just like making it look good on screen, and it was done for very little money, relatively speaking, for a big studio movie. And I think like any live action Avatars should try to, master those elements,
Right,
because
but the
even
next
if the
one, the
story
next
is
one is
lacking,
going to
the
be
CGI should be good. Like that
the
execution.
next one's going to be a
really
Netflix
speaks for
show,
it.
isn't it? It's
It
going to be a
is.
Netflix.
And
those typically have a very uniform look. Like if that's I'm going to be surprised if they fix that.
Well, the Sandman was fantastic. I mean, that might get a season 2, and it looked like one of the best shows of the year. I mean, maybe not as good as Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, but it definitely is up there. So I trust Netflix to make a good show out of it. I'm looking forward to seeing that. It won't be one of the things that they will announce at this D23.
I
but
know.
we will talk
About. Sorry, we got way off topic here.
We will talk
But-
about D23 next week. All the big announcements, react to them, analyze them, break it down. We'll provide our opinions on whether we like the Fantastic Four cast or not, and whatever else they announce. Maybe we will be talking about how they use deep fakes to put Harrison Ford's face on a younger stunt actor that's doing all the stunts from an Indy 5, and it looks bad. Like that's one of the things I can see us talking about potentially.
Yeah, I could see that. That felt very real. All
That
right,
could
well
happen.
then we'll meet back next week and we'll talk about everything that actually happened there. In the meantime, be our friend. Keep us updated. We're gonna keep you updated. Comment, like, subscribe. Find us on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, anywhere you get a podcast. This has been Oh So Curious. It's been a pretty fun episode, I would say. But stay tuned. There's going to be more stuff happening next week. We'll see you later. Have a good week.